Hello and welcome to another fun-filled edition of FS Mania. Today we're in beautiful Yakutat, Alaska for a vintage warbird flight in North American Aviation's P-51. The P-51 is a long-range fighter introduced in World War II. She is considered to be one of the finest fighter planes ever built. Our P-51-D for today's flight is beautifully modeled by A2A Simulations. I purchased this baby about 3 weeks ago and it's quickly becoming my favorite airplane. I've already logged close to 40 hours of P-51 pilot and command time, and I still haven't mastered this beast. So I'm still training, and that's okay, because it is a fantastically fun, albeit challenging, airplane to fly. And I can't say enough good about it. This is my first A2A aircraft, but I can guarantee it won't be my last. Our flight today will be mainly a training flight. We're going to stay right here in Yakutat and do some pattern work, touch and goes, and maybe stretch Blondie's leg a bit and see if we can handle the 1720 V12 supercharged Merlin engine she's packing under the hood. For more detailed information about the P-51, be sure to check out FS Mania's recently released video titled A2A Accu-Sim P-51 Mustang. Alright, climb aboard. You're going to want to buckle up. Let's go flying. Good evening and welcome aboard the P-51, one of the greatest fighters ever built. And this is a training flight, so we're going to get started. I've already warmed up our engine and checked all our systems out, so basically we just need to fire up, taxi down to the end of runway 29, and we're going to do some takeoff and landings, maybe some touch and goes, and I don't know, a couple other things. We'll see how it all goes. So we just want to check and be sure our carburetor air and carb heat are in the full forward off positions, and our air controls are in the for the radiators for the oil and coolant are in the auto positions. Rudder trim, we're going to set that over to 6 degrees, and aileron trim 0, and we're going to go with a couple of degrees nose down, and landing lights are off, mixtures in the cutoff position. Our our throttle, power control throttle is cracked about 1 inch, and propeller control is full forward. Everything's off here in the fuel control panel. The fuel cutoff is on. We're on the left tank, and park and brake is set. And let's cut on our battery, cut on our generator, and fuel booster on. I hear it running, and I see we have fuel pressure over here, so I want to give it a prime just a couple of seconds since we've already warmed her up, and we'll clear the area, clear prop, and let's bring on our starter. Get about 3 or 4 blades to spin there since we've already had it fired up. Ignition on. Mixture to run. Get it idling up about 1,000 RPMs here. There we go. Oil pressure's up. Still just a little bit on the cool side, but it'll warm up on the taxi. And let's get our lights on here. And pitot heat. And we'll go ahead and cut our landing light. So it's almost 8:30 evening here in Alaska, and not to worry, we still have plenty of light because we're in Alaska. The sun doesn't set this time of year in May until later in the evening, probably I'd say 10 o'clock or so. Park and brakes off, and let's taxi out to the runway. So when I'm taxiing, I'm going to use the castering tail wheel. So stick goes forward. It does take a little getting used to taxiing this airplane, especially because you can't see where you're going very well, so you just have to use your peripheral vision. fly this airplane all the time, and it has been a real challenge because it is so accurately modeled. There you go. Now you can definitely hear me a little better. Okay, so I'm going to hold the brake, bring the power up to around 25 inches to 30 inches, somewhere in there, before I release the brake. And I want to bring it up slowly and then just keep adding power slowly. Release the brake along in here, start the roll, and then use the rudder. A little bit of back pressure on the stick here. Gradually add the power. Right rudder. Let the tail pressure off and let the tail fly up about 55 inches. And line speed, we'll go ahead and pull the nose up, get the gear up. And then we're going to reduce power back to 45 inches and 2,700 RPMs on the prop. Heading is 200, so we can sort of look for that. And when we get to about 1,200 to 1,300 feet, we'll start bringing the power back and to about 20 inches, 19 inches, and drop our nose down and level off about 1,500 feet. And then we want to roll out on 200. And I like to go ahead and put in one stage of flaps right here just to keep the speed from getting away from me. And I need to trim my nose up a little bit, look for traffic, and go ahead and start our turn downwind. Whoopsie. Very sensitive on the controls, but we want to hold about our 1,500 foot heading here. A little bit of nose down trim, power back just a little bit. And downwind heading is 110. Beautiful night here in Alaska, I will say. Perfect time to be doing some of these touch and goes. And there's our downwind heading, 110. We level our wings. And when we get a beam of the numbers, that's where we want to start the descent back down to the runway. And so right in here, I'm basically just trimming the airplane for level flight. Keeping my speed down around 160 or less. And when we're beaming the numbers, which we are right now, I'll go ahead and get another stage of flaps in and drop the gear down. And when I do that, the nose wants to pitch down, so I give a little bit of back pressure, but I want to establish about a 500 foot a minute descent right here. See a green light on the gear's safe. And so I'm adding some nose up trim. Again, we got a heavy engine up there. And just holding the downwind heading of 110. Keep my wings level here. And when we get the numbers are about 45 degrees behind our left shoulder, we'll go ahead and start a turn to base. And when we start that turn, the nose wants to drop, so a little bit of back pressure, keeping that 500 foot a minute descent going. Basically, flying the pattern, we want to pretty much do the same thing over and over again. I'm adding just a little bit more nose up trim. It is convenient to have all these controls on my X55 so I don't have to look down. Flaps, gear, trim, and we're going to roll out. The base heading is 020, so we're going to level our wings right there. And we want to look on final approach course, see if there's any traffic, check the runway, keep that descent coming, and everything looks good. And we're going to go ahead then and start our turn to final. Try to time that where we can roll out on the runway, but if you don't, not a big deal. You just correct. You don't want to get your turn too steep here. Just keep the airplane coming down 500 feet a minute. And so far I'm liking what I see. And then right about in here I go ahead and get that third stage of flaps in. Airspeed's about 120 knots. I'm sorry, it's miles per hour in this airplane. 120 miles per hour. The airplane loves to fly, and it loves to fly fast. Biggest problem I have with it, I think, is trying to get it to stop, trying to get it to land, and trying to get it to land smoothly is a challenge. If I can land and stay on the runway, I'm pretty happy. If I can land and not bounce it more than twice, I'm pretty happy. It's a hard airplane to fly. It's a hard airplane to learn to land and land properly. Trust me, if I don't land well, it's not from lack of trying. Like I said, I'm just getting a little low, so I'm just bringing the nose up a little bit, slowing up that descent some. I don't want to add too much power in here at this point. Now I'm going to drop the nose back down, start easing off the power, get myself lined up. I don't want to be descending too fast. Bring the power back. And let's see if she'll want to quit flying here. There's one little bounce. Okay, now I'm going to bring the power back in. I'm going to dump the flaps. Right rudder in there, back up the flying speed, pull the nose up, and that's what you call a touch and go. Gear up. On the heading, looking for 1,500 feet on the altitude. I just left the prop control right where it is. There's plenty of power in this airplane for the go around, so didn't need to worry too much about getting it set back to the fine pitch because it goes around just fine at 2,700 RPMs. And let's get that first stage of flaps in there. And let's come on around the downwind. You could just pretty much keep doing the same thing over and over again. I see the moon up there. Keep my eyes on what's happening here. A little bit faster than I want to. Ease the power back, get me slowed up. So I want to be at gear extension speed. Yeah, she just wants to keep flying. I did get that first stage of flaps in there. Or did I? Maybe not. Seems a little slippery right now, but that's helping right there. Get me slowed up. And there's our numbers. That's nose up trim. And let's get another stage of flaps and gear coming down. And establishing that 500 foot a minute descent. And in a perfect world, the airplane is basically trimmed for that, and I don't have to do a whole lot except for slight adjustments. It's not as easy as it might sound. Coming around to 020. Roll us out. Look for traffic. I've already got a third stage of flaps in here, and that's why I think I'm needing a little bit more power here. Start that turn too early or too late. So it's not going to add any more flaps. I'm carrying just a little bit more power than I have been, but my airspeed's right around 110, 15 miles per hour, which is just fine. Don't want to go really any slower than that. Now I'm going to bring some power off. Now you can see I'm not perfectly lined up with the runway, so I want to make those adjustments out here. Try not to have to do any extreme turns to get down near the runway. And basically when I get close to the runway, I like to try to use the rudder for directional control and keep the wings as level as possible so we can touch down with both wheels at the same time. Now I can see my speed's a little fast. I'm just pulling off some power. We'll find a runway here in a minute. I wonder if we get too okay, coming in with the power, dumping the flaps. Get credit for 2 landings. Gear up. So when the wheels touch twice like that, it seems like Flight Sim would give me credit for 2 landings. I don't know. Stage of flaps, and we'll bring that power on back a little bit more, and let's come on around to downwind 110, and I'll just take a look and be sure that I do have those flaps in there. Yeah, I think so. I'll trim the nose up just a little bit, get it slowed up. Yeah, now the speed's looking about where I want it to be. So yeah, I've got to fly this thing all the time. If you get distracted for more than a minute, you could find yourself in trouble. Actually, for more than about 10 seconds. This airplane demands constant attention. There's our downwind heading. Level up our wings. Take a quick look at the scenery. There's the runway. Speed looks good. Everything's looking good. Numbers, get another stage of flaps in there, gears coming down. And back pressure, trimming the nose up. I will say you don't want to try to fly the airplane with the trim. You need to put the nose where you want it and then relieve the pressure with the trim. And let's go ahead and turn base. A little back pressure. Heading 020, level our wings, check the traffic, runway's right there. Start our turn to final. Turned a little early, and I'll roll out here and get myself lined up. Go ahead and get in a third stage of flaps. Releasing off the power. Lined up with the runway. All is well with the world. So yeah, the airplane, it's really hard to slow it down. Even coming down here on the runway, it just wants to keep on flying. When it gets into the ground effect of the runway, that's modeled well. So it tends to like to float. I could grab another stage of flaps. I really like to try to land with just 3 stages. Stay on the runway. We're going to add some power, dump the flaps, go around. And gears coming up. That was probably not the best landing, but that's okay. you're a fighter pilot and you just came back from a mission, you aren't going to come in and do a real pamby-pamby landing. You're going to come in and show off a little bit because your adrenaline's pumped up and you are feeling good because you didn't get killed. So you want to come in and do a victory roll, right? I think that's what I'd want to do if I was a pilot. That just flew a mission and didn't get killed. So we're going to fly a non-standard routine right here. Somewhere right behind us, and we're at 2,500 feet, and we're doing about 250. I know we're breaking the speed limit below 10,000 feet, assuming. So we're going to do a high-speed, high-G turn, come back around the runway heading. 90. Drop the nose, add some power. We're going to do this a high-speed pass. That's compressibility that we're experiencing there. Feels like the airplane's going to fall apart. But I'd say this is what we would do on our first pass. We're doing close to 400. Into the runway, we're going to pull the nose up. And we'll go vertical. Then when we get over the top, we'll roll our wings over. Power back. Back down. Come back in with the power. Going vertical again. That's what I would call a figure eight. Add some power back in here and victory roll, and then right left turn, and we'll go downwind, power back, and let's go in lander. So just a little show off there, hot dogging at the end. That's something a fighter pilot would absolutely do. this airplane slowed down. I'm bringing our power back, and once we get slowed up here just a bit, I'll start adding some flaps in. See how fast we're going? 275 miles an hour. Power's basically off. Go ahead and get in some flaps to help slow us up. Just a couple of stages. Don't want to go full yet because it's slowed up the gear extension speed. And basically here we'll just hold downwind heading, extend it whatever we need to slow up. Let's get the gear down. A little back pressure. 500 foot a minute on the descent. Airplane slowing up nicely. Go ahead and start turn down to base. Back pressure, full nose up trim. So as we prepare for this final approach and landing, hopefully this will be a keeper, and that will conclude for now the P-51 flight. So we'll move on to something else, but I will tell you that I have been pretty much obsessed with this airplane since I got it. It is well worth the cost and the time. I have probably got, this is no exaggeration, probably at least 40 hours flying this airplane. That's how much commitment it takes to fly it well. And it's been 40 hours of fun though. It's not like I've had to work at it. I've just enjoyed doing it. That's why I've got so much time spent. Sit up with my seat just a tad, drop my nose here a little bit, find the runway. Add in that third stage of flaps. Get one without bouncing. I don't think I bounced buttons though. Okay, now tail hits, and if we start braking, keep pulling back on that stick. Keep the nose from diving down on us. Make sure to get the power all the way off. And we'll call that a wrap for this session. P-51, and we're going to taxi it back up here to where we started. this was an air show, this would be a good time to, let's get these flaps up, open up our canopy, and when we get up here we'll stand up and wave to the cheering crowd. I like the sounds that A2A put with this aircraft. I can hear the metal creaking. Tell the engine's good and hot. Yeah, there's just nothing not to like about this plane. But you can't be a lazy pilot and fly. You really have to work. I will say you do have to work at it. Stick forward here so we can cast to the tail wheel. Differential brake. Right brake. I don't know if I mentioned this. I used to fly years ago a Grumman Gulfstream American. Originally it was Grumman. They produced some light aircraft, general aviation aircraft, a Cheetah, a Tiger, and a Cougar. The Cougar was a twin. And I have flown the Cheetah and the Tiger. They have castering nose wheels and differential braking required to steer them on the ground. So I got used to that, and that was all well and good. The problem, though, is one time I was flying the Cheetah, and it had a issue with one of the brakes leaking brake fluid, and so the brake wasn't working, and I was at a little airport with a grass runway, and I needed to leave, and I got to the end of the runway, tried to line up, and all I could do was just turn circles. And so I literally shut the engine down. I got out. I took the tail of the aircraft. I lined it up with the runway. I got back in. I cranked up. I took off. Used rudder for directional control. And flew back to my home airport. And when I landed, I just coasted. I had plenty of runway. I just coasted to a stop. And radioed the folks there at the airport and said, you need to come out and give me a hand, and they did. They fixed the brake, the leak. And so, yeah, stuff like that happens. Down here, if you have a brake that goes bad, you got the same problem. So you just have to work with it best you can. I don't know what kind of parking job I'm doing here. I'm running my mouth, so let's pull them up just a little bit. I'll say we'll call that right there good. We'll put the engine stall, okay. Alright, now let's shut everything off. Landing light comes off. Pump off, booster pump, bring our mixture up to cut off. We'll let that prop stop spinning. Shut our ignition off right there. And we'll get these lights off, get that light off, pitot heat off, generator and the battery all off. Okay, so that was fun. Let's set this brake. Brake right here. There we go. Alright, and so we'll stand up and wave to the cheering crowd. Wave to everybody. Oh, there's nobody here. Okay, well, we're not going to wave. We'll just, how about we just hop out. So definitely a beautiful day here in Yakutat, Alaska. Great day to fly touch and goes and have fun with the P-51 and really have enjoyed the airplane. I really appreciate you joining me, and hope you'll be here on the next one, which will be, I don't know what. We'll fly from here to somewhere and something. I promise. I don't know what it'll be yet, but it'll be fun. As always, thanks for watching. Stay tuned. Until next time, from FS Mania, so long.